What's up, Damon? Man, that was nice.
Good. I checked your calendar to make sure you weren't.
Oh, hey Lance, sorry I had it on mute. Can you pause the recording until we start the podcast, and then that way it'll just be.
I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, so if you go down to the bottom.
Oh, yeah. All right, guys, we're recording. What's up, Kyle? How's it going, bro?
Doing good. Just had a very busy day of a couple closings and a few other things getting straightened out. So always good.
You
Just a
don't
couple
say.
of closings. He's just
Yeah.
been having a couple of closings. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, every time I talk to this guy, he's like, oh, I'm closing a deal right now. Let me call you back. I'm like, dang, dude.
Yeah, man. So, I'll be the first to say I've been sitting on pins and needles all week, Kyle. We have talked offline a little bit, which, man, so appreciative for those conversations because I've learned so much in them. But man, I've been just can't wait to come in and talk to you today because, man, I think you have so much information to give out to people on a concept that people find really hard to understand. And you almost make it sound easy, right? And you've really fine-tuned and honed your process for doing this. And I was just telling everybody before they came in the room, for those naysayers that say that you can't get into real estate with no money down, Kyle's about to prove you wrong. So that being said, man, I have been I can't wait to come in to this particular meeting today and learn all about it. So, man, let's just get started and we'll take it away. Hey, Kyle, so I want to walk a little bit through just who you are, how you found your way here, your story, right? And then we'll talk a little bit about how you got involved in the Sub-2 community, how you ended up there, with Pace. And then we'll start talking about real estate and how you got into this method that we're going to talk about and how you've used it and what you're currently doing and going to do in the future. Because I think some of what you told me about what you're going to do in the future is absolutely amazing, right?
Yeah.
So, man, Kyle, tell me a little bit about your past. Tell me who Kyle is.
Yeah. So I'm 27 and I was going to school for physical chemistry when COVID happened. I was at Colorado School of Mines and COVID happened and I was in my final years of labs and, really intense stuff that needed to be there was no way that you could do this online. And they then tried to make us do it online and charge double the price for it as well. And so at that time I said, screw that. I'm not continuing, at least right now, until the world goes back to normal. And luckily, it's a blessing because I'd always been interested in real estate. But when that happened, I just kind of had a lot more free time and everything. And so I started digging way more into real estate. And I found a Bigger Pockets episode with Pace on it, talking about seller financing and stuff. And I had known that you could do seller financing if it was just straight up, somebody owned the house, seller finance it outright. And other than that, I didn't know anything about creative finance or anything. And so I went down the Pace Sub-2 rabbit hole. And that was about 15 months ago or so that I joined Sub-2.
So let me get this straight, right? 27 years old, was in college, didn't know anything about real estate, found Pace, and now here you are, right? Doing real estate deals. Okay.
Yeah, and I average right now about 5 properties a week that I close on.
Yeah, five properties a week.
Yes,
So So, hey guys, can you please turn or mute all of your microphones? Thanks. So, okay, so a little bit like before all that, Kyle, like what was your upbringing like? Did you? I'm imagining you came from pretty humble beginnings. Like parents are not millionaires.
No.
None of that stuff. You're on mute, Kyle. Sorry. Can you
You're good.
unmute? Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, no, you know, have lived in the same house, my entire life, and or at least I think we moved into the house when I was like one. And my dad is a computer programmer, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom. She had a massive head injury back in the 80s, and most of the time she looks and talks and acts like everyone would. But if she gets really tired or stressed, some of her symptoms will come back, and so she won't be able to walk, talk, see, that type of thing. And then she goes and takes a nap, and 4 hours later she's back to normal. Um, but yeah, very. And I had always been. My nature is that I'm a saver. I was habitually saving money because I never had very much, and I basically was able to save up to like I think I had about $6,000 before I quit my job, and kind of pulled a Roman, light the ships on fire, and there's no turning back. And so when and that was in November when I quit my job and went full time into real estate.
That's amazing, man. So yeah, you saved up a whopping $6,000 and decided to go all in. I love that.
Yeah,
He's got
yeah,
the true
quit my job that I was
entrepreneur.
making $2,000 a month at, and
Yeah, yeah. Well, so awesome. So, you come from humble beginnings, kind of, much like I think many people, right, that
Mhm.
that come into this community, and you obviously are a bright guy because you're doing college, so you've got the ability to learn. But
Mhm.
let's talk about your entry into real estate, right? Because I'm sure when you came into Pace's community, you didn't necessarily know a whole lot about real estate. So where did you start, right? Was it like wholesaling, or did you just dive all in and
I kind of
decide like
dived into the most
I'm
complex
gonna
thing.
learn this method?
Yeah, because I I started with a couple of seller finance deals, straight deals out of I had connected with a seller out of Toledo, Ohio, and
Mm-hmm.
the it's nice because everything goes back to at least having no money and having to work around not having money, because so I targeted basically somewhere in the country that had really low price point homes and a really good ratio of return. So I wanted the
Mm-hmm.
rent to be exceed the 1% rule, and so I found this seller in Toledo, Ohio, and he had a portfolio of like 50 properties, and it was really cool because they're like $40,000 houses, and I could buy each house um, using kind of private money and stuff. And so I worked out a really cool little system, and I'm still actually working the system with the seller. I'd buy two properties at one time. The first property would be cash at a little bit of a discount. So then I would go and get a first position private money lender, put them on that property, but get enough cash to buy that property and put the down payment on the second house, which was seller financed. And then the terms of that would be whatever the rent was minus 15% at 2% interest was the amortization. And so they're paying off like rapidly fast too, like at 3 years, 4 years. And then um, all of the rents, he was kind of an old landlord, everything, and his rents have stayed stagnant forever. So I was getting the structure on his current rents, but market rents were like at least double what his rents was. And so I've been going through raising the rents, getting them to market value, and I would just do it in tranches too. And then he would take the cash from the one, and basically he goes and looks for more properties to buy to seller finance to me. So it's kind of a cool little rinse and repeat system. And we have 8 of them now in Toledo.
He basically became your wholesaler. I mean,
Yeah,
so
essentially, bank and wholesaler at the same time.
So what is he doing? Is he taking it out like a 1031 exchange to get into the property, or he's just taking his cash and bringing it to you?
Just
Like, how is
cash.
he?
Yeah, he's a very simple, older gentleman, and he doesn't. He knows enough about like seller financing and stuff, but he doesn't know enough to do 1031 exchanges or anything like that. He just takes cash and goes buys another one and then sells it to me, for a little bit of a premium.
Amazing, man. Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so man, I'm blown away at how smart of a guy you are. I mean, Lance, can you believe it? I mean, it's crazy.
I mean,
Not
I knew,
that
but
it's
man,
crazy
the
that
more,
it's not
yeah,
that it's crazy that you're
right.
smart, Kyle. It's
Mhm.
crazy that you're putting together for many people what is like a difficult concept. And
Yeah.
this is like
Right.
you're diving into the deep end of the pool, right?
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, that
Yeah.
was kind of the launch pad into, and I went from that into right from that into Morby Methods, and then now I do mostly Morby Method and wraps.
Yeah, and so
Mhm.
there it is, guys. There's where we're heading, right? He just let the cat out of the bag, the Morby Method, right? And that is truly what we're here to discuss in some great depth. And I'm going to get there. But I know Lance is really big on mindset. And I know that Lance has got some mindset questions brewing around in his mind right now.
Yeah, I love mindset.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. Kyle and I have been working together for a little bit. We've done a handful of deals together now. And I realized Kyle was really sharp when he said we're getting about 2 contracts a week. And that was a couple months ago. So I'm sure you're doing more than that, it seems like now.
Mhm.
But man, Kyle, what do you say to the W-2 earners who are trying to get out of the W-2? What's the first step, in getting out of that mentality, that 9 to 5 mentality, man, and taking a risk and kind of
Mhm.
diving fully into this real estate world?
Yeah, so I've talked to a lot of people that have been successful in real estate and entrepreneurship and stuff, and and I fully subscribe to the mentality that a W-2 is kind of like a drug that they give you to keep just enough to keep going every month, make sure your bills are just barely paid and you're not getting really ahead or anything, but you're also keeping a roof over your head and you're keeping food on your table. And so I one of my favorite entrepreneurs is Robert Kiyosaki, and a handful of other people. And a lot of people will say, that you kind of have to do it like a Trojan boat burning. You just have to quit your job if you really want to be successful. Which I don't think I would necessarily recommend, like just blindly quitting your job. I do think you should have some kind of lead up to it and prep. I think that have at least a couple months worth of expenses saved up, and then throw it all on, because better to have the heat on you but not in the fire already.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I hear a lot of other people say, I did the same thing. I burnt all the bridges, right? Burning the bridges. So there's no other option. Uh, a lot of people say, and I think I've heard Pace say that, you should at least cover your income, what you're making now on your W-2 consistently before, moving full time. What do you think about that? Do you agree with that?
That's good advice and bad advice. That's not what I did. I did not have the passive income to support my job before I left. Actually, one of the things that pushed me faster, I guess, than I would have normally done it is I'm a terrible employee. In the sense that I absolutely hate, being micromanaged and the type of thing. And I was working a security job, and it was a combination of my boss was starting to become a micromanager, and the system and the company was starting to become a micromanager. They were setting it so that basically you had to have they had a system on the phone, the security phone, and they had these little RFI scanners or tags throughout the building, and they were setting it so that you had to go scan each one of these spots once an hour. And it was a big building, so it was like a 20-minute walk to get through the building and scan everything. So basically it got to the point where it was just ridiculous busy work, and it just really kind of pissed me off, because I'm like, this is not worthy of my time in any sense. And so I kind of jumped, and left. And then when I left, I immediately hired my first employee. Again, just kind of, and to be honest, I'm still kind of always ahead of where I should be financially and everything, but so far I've been able to make it work out, so it's been pretty good.
That's awesome. So what I'm hearing you say is, if you have a really shitty job, just, it makes it a lot easier to
Yeah, don't waste away there for 10 years and doing nothing and before making a decision.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I love that. And you guys are cranking, man. You guys are just busy. You have a lot of connections. I noticed, let's talk about networking a little bit. I see you at events all the time. You're in the Protege program now. You're going to start buying businesses if you haven't already. I know you're doing some big things, man. And one of the things I talk to people about all the time is networking with people and JVing with people, right? I mean, getting into deals with people is super crucial. What would you say to those people, the power of networking and, joint venturing, especially for your first deal?
Oh, it's incredible. So I don't have a single property anywhere that I own that I don't have a partner on, at least one partner. There's, some that I have 2 or 3 partners on. And, it's, if I would have waited until I could do everything by myself, it would have been years before I could even remotely start to do the what I'm doing now. And it's one of those things that, that saying, I'd much rather have a little bit of a lot than a lot of nothing. And because I'm really good at certain things, but I'm not the best or have all the resources for everything. And I'm quickly finding out that I only have 24 hours in a day. That is right now my biggest constraint is finding time to sleep and get everything done that I've committed to. And and with I love JVing too, just because they're the people you meet. You get to connect with awesome people. I would have never connected with you on as deep of a level as I have if it wouldn't have been for partnering up on some deals and stuff. And so that's been wonderful. And I spent most of last year to some extent following Pace around the country, going to Kent Clothier's event and Clever Investor and all these different big events. And I spend a lot of time and money putting into networking and building relationships with people. And that is the only reason I credit that 100% that I am at any given time have 20 deals in escrow, because I built relationships with people that, know, like, and trust me.
That's great, man. That's powerful. Speaks volumes, man.
Mhm.
I think that's one of the most important things in real estate to learn, quite honestly, right? Is everybody wants to play it so close to the hip, right? Because there are con artists in real estate, and there are people that don't want to, and people are going to steal your deal. But I think, like, when you get out of that cage and you start to realize that, for every person that there is that's like that, there are 10 that are not. And if
Yep.
you're not working with them, right, you're killing yourself. You're slowing everything down. So yeah, I think this is a massively important thing for people to learn. So let me ask you a quick question, Kyle. So where you're at now, how many properties, how many doors, I guess, do you own?
I honestly have been buying so quickly recently that it's been hard to keep track of, but we're around, I think, 40 doors that we own now at this point.
27 years old, 40 doors. Not bad.
Yeah.
Not bad at
And 36 of that is within the last 8 months.
Amazing. So, man, I think we've heard about where you come from, who you are. Great guy. I think since I've gotten to meet you, all that I've known you to be is an absolute go-giver, which is, amazing. I try to be that as much as I can every day. I know it's probably hard for you, probably much like me. You try to give away as much of your time as you can to others, and you almost seems like you don't have any time for yourself.
Right. Yeah.
But let's get into the Morby method. Let's take a really deep dive here, right? I want, because I think that you understand it so well, and there are many people that are just very they get lost in the weeds on this thing, right? And I think there are some pieces even that I do, and I understand the Morby method at its basis, but when you understand it at its basis, there are different ways that you can put that same thing together, right? So let's talk a little bit about the Morby method. Let's take people through what it is at its base, right?
Yeah. So Morby method is, I guess we'll start with the very fundamentals of what a Morby method is and why you'd use it, when you'd use it. And so a Morby method is generally used if a seller wants or needs a higher down payment, and but they're willing to seller finance the remaining of the balance. And they have to be the one linchpin of Morby method is that the seller financing has to be moved into second position, and that's key because you're getting a DSCR loan, debt service coverage ratio loan, to give the down payment to the seller. And how it works is a Morby method is two distinct transactions that happen one immediately after the other. The first leg of the transaction is where you have to have 100% of the funds of the purchase price come into escrow. And so if, let's say, on a property, and the seller wants 50% down, if the seller wants 50% down, and you can go get a DSCR loan for 50%, then 50% of the funds come into escrow as the down payment from the DSCR loan. You then get a transactional lender for like a day, maybe two at most. You send those funds into escrow, and so 100% of the funds are in escrow, and then the settlement statement is created, transaction closes, but via escrow hold up back and release instructions, the funds that are being seller financed are moved from one escrow account into a separate, completely separate second escrow account. That's a key point that a lot of people don't get as well, because you can technically run into some mortgage fraud questions if you leave it in the same account. So it has to be a separate account. Then the promissory note is created and secured by a mortgage or deed of trust on the property, and then the funds are released to where they're supposed to go based on the escrow release instructions that you pre-signed before everything was ever set into motion. And you make sure that they're irrevocable, so that the seller can't just be like, oh, just kidding, I don't want to do this anymore. It's like, no, this is not a questionable thing. It has to be done how you agreed to it. Only the buyer can change the terms at that point. And so theoretically, you can structure it so that you can get into a deal of any size for no money out of pocket. And what's really powerful and cool is you can actually overlap the loans and over leverage the property and get paid at closing, which is tax-free because it's a loan. And so that's where, if you do the math correctly and everything, a Morby method can become immensely powerful, because you can get paid to buy properties that still cash flow. So it's a pretty powerful and important thing.
So let's back up, man, because that's a lot to unpack.
Mm-hmm.
I know everybody in here is like, oh my goodness, like what in the world are we talking about?
Yeah.
People are starting to see like numbers and things in front of their eyes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's start back at bringing 50% or 75%. Let's talk a little bit about that, right? So that you're going to have to get a loan on this, and so I'm going to the seller, and the seller says, I want 85%. I only want to bring 10%. I only want a seller carry 10%, right?
Yep.
Is this something that you could still do, or are there some parameters that you have to follow there?
So you can do it with any percentage that they're willing to seller finance, but the most that you'll ever be able to get a DSCR loan is, on a really good lucky day, 80%. So anything, and generally I'd say a 70% loan is much more reasonable, for DSCR loan. And so if they're willing to, let's say you can get a 70% loan and they're only willing to seller finance 10%, well, then you have a 20% gap there, and you could still do the transaction, but you just have to bring 20% of the purchase price as actual cash into the deal. And so now you're looking at a cash on cash return and those types of calculations, which is doable. But I would much rather have it structured where I either didn't have to bring any money or I got paid to buy the deal. And so then it's not a cash on cash return, it's an infinite return, because
right,
you have no money in the deal and you're making money. So
right. Yeah, so I think, and just, if I can, in layman's terms for me, if I can clarify for everybody, I think what he's saying, guys, is that he's basing this on a DSCR loan. He knows that his DSCR loan is probably about 70%. So you, Kyle, are looking at probably 70% and below, right?
exactly.
And of course, I always want to bring the DSCR lender for the lowest possible amount, because that's the more advantageous loan for them against the valuation on the property, right? So if I only bring the DSCR for 50%, and then I'm bringing this, private money lender for the transactional lend, and the seller's willing to carry another 50%, well, that's a much more advantageous deal, right, for you.
So it's actually a little bit of a tweak to that. So it's I actually, every single time, I want, as long as it makes sense as far as the cash flow goes, then I want to actually get as high of a loan as I possibly can on the DSCR side, because the higher that loan is, and the more that the seller is willing to finance, the more that the loans are going to overlap, and the more that they overlap means the more that you get paid at closing. So in a perfect world, let's say a seller is willing to seller finance 50%, and you get a 70% DSCR loan. So you have 20% overlap there. So that 20%, well, let's say it's a $200,000 house. So 20% of that is 40 grand. 40 grand now can be used towards closing costs, and whatever's left over after everything is paid at closing, let's say it's 35,000. Well, you're going to get a check at closing for $35,000 to be able to do with as you want. You know, put into another deal, put gas in your car, or whatever else it might be.
A semester of college for your children.
There you go.
Hopefully, at least one semester. Yep.
Yeah.
With how expensive it is now.
And then you can be like Kyle. They're going to go to college for a semester, and then they're going to go into real estate.
Yeah.
That's right.
Oh, I know. Hindsight's always 20/20. If I could go back and be like,
Yeah.
oh, that was a lot of money I just wasted.
I'm always telling my kids, like, well, you know, college isn't always. I mean, I don't down college, but because I have a degree too. But I'm like, college is not as necessary as it used to be, right? Because
No, no.
my hope is that I teach them everything they need to know about real estate, and they never have to go to college a day in their
Yeah.
life. Yeah.
Well,
Exactly.
I think about it now, and I'm like, you know, if I take 40 grand that I put at least 40 grand into, you know, my college, if I would have taken that 40 grand and put it into Sub 2 and Protege and, you know, a couple other programs, I'd be light years ahead of, you know, and not have a student loan debt, you know.
Yeah. So okay. So basically, if I get this right, you're going off the appraisal value, right? So you're getting
Yeah.
into a property and you want that thing to appraise higher than what you're actually buying it for. So, you know, effectively, if you can get that, let's say you get that property at 70% of what it's worth, but then you're bringing, you know, the DSCR loan for 50%, and the seller is willing to carry 50%. Well, you know that you're going to probably get an appraisal well above the 30% there, right? Because the it generally always appraises over market value, right? So
Right. Yeah.
you can leverage that thing out, stick in a renter, and let them pay it down for you, right?
Yeah. Yep. And it's nice because you can I apologize, I lost my train of thought. What was the question?
Yeah, so I think I was talking about like you're kind of basing it off of your appraisal. You're hoping that you can get a high appraisal, right? So that you can, you know, pull the money back out. So, you know, maybe you got
Yes
this
and
house
no.
and it was already under valuation, or
So that's what maybe we'll talk about a little bit later. That plays a lot more into what I kind of call the reverse Morby method, which is kind of a whole different way to wholesale into Morby methods, basically. And but what you really care about is that, you know, the bank will appraise it at the purchase price. You know, at or above the purchase price is always what you want. If it's above the purchase price, at least in the initial purchase price phase, that doesn't really help at all. I mean, it's not a bad thing, but it doesn't help because it's a debt service coverage ratio loan. So they are going off of the value of the property, but they care much more about how much does the property generate in income versus the monthly expenses. And so you know, if you set, and you can get creative with, you know, the purchase price or different things to be able to manipulate some of these numbers, you know, a little bit more, because, you know, if you know that it will appraise at something, but it'll make the loan better. You can adjust the purchase price and then base the loan off of that adjusted purchase price, and then you can have kind of like a ancillary agreement with the seller, kind of like how Pace bought his house with Jerry Norton. You know, if anyone knows that story of how he basically set up a consulting agreement with Jerry for portion of the purchase price, so that way it saved Jerry a lot of taxes, actually.
Yeah, they lodged that through an LLC for a consultancy fee, right? And it's
Right,
basically
exactly.
saved his 25% capital gains tax.
Well, no, it became since Jerry Norton lives in Puerto Rico, it became regular income. Regular income in Puerto Rico is 4%, and so instead of capital gains, it was income, and income is actually far less taxed in Puerto Rico, because that's why he moved there.
Amazing, man. That's amazing.
Wow, that is insane.
So let's try to help people figure this out in their mind, right? So let's try. We've got a house that's $200,000, right? And you're going to do a Morby method on it.
Yep.
Let's talk about how you get there on your numbers. How do you come up with, well, this is what we're going to offer, purchase price, giving to the seller, you know?
Yeah. So the first thing that I always start with is the rental income, or what can the property produce income wise, because that's going to be what you have to basically back calculate into everything else. And so let's say that a good rule of thumb for Morby method, it's not 100% of the time one way or another, but it's a good quick napkin math. If the rent on the property meets or exceeds the 1% rule for rent, then it could probably be a pretty good Morby method. But if it fails the 1% rule, it doesn't mean that it can't work. It just means that you have to get more creative, or it's not as easy of a path to make a Morby method work, especially with higher interest rates, you know, currently. So let's say on and so the first thing I do is I take whatever the rent is and I multiply that by 75% to take off 25% for war chest. And, you know, then after the war chest is taken off, then whatever that is left is what I have to pay, basically all the monthly expenses. And then after all that, figure out if there's any cash flow left. And, you know, hopefully there is some. So let's say on a $200,000 house that, let's say that rent is exactly at the 1% rule. So it really kind of go either way at $2,000 per month. So at $2,000 a month, I would start by multiplying that by 0.75, which is going to give us $1,500 a month in income to work with. Then from that income of $1,500 a month, and let's just say that it's a 50-50%, you know, situation. So let's say that it's going to, and for anyone that wants a wonderful little tool, there is an app called 10BII Financial Calculator. It's about $5, I think, to purchase, but it is the best money I've ever spent in my life. It is helps me tremendously to be able to calculate a lot of different things very quickly. And so if right now, let's just say that you can get a DSCR loan at 8%, and let's say it was for the 100,000, then your monthly principal and interest payment would be $733 a month and 76 cents. Then let's just say you have another let's say $200 a month in taxes, and then another $200 in insurance. So another 400 total. So that puts your monthly payment at 1133.76. And if you have, let's say you structure it so that you're like, okay, I now have about $400 left to work with. I can structure it so that I can give $200 a month to the seller, and calculate however that might work, and have $200 a month left every month for cash flow. And now for my rule of thumb, because I always want to try and leverage the property as much as possible, because upfront cash and a lump sum is worth way more because of the velocity of money than $50 a month in cash flow. So I will leverage a property all the way up to where I make no cash flow on it every month, as long as after it breaks even after 25% war chest every month. And so in this case, I theoretically would have this one. I'd want some cash flow because we broke even getting into the deal. We didn't get paid to get into the deal. But if you get paid to get into the deal, I take that all the way up to $1,500 potentially to, for your PITI on the DSCR and whatever payment to the seller. And so, it just depends on how you structure it. You can structure it with the seller being in a silent second for duration. You can structure it where the payments start immediately to the seller. You can structure a lot of different things. It's kind of, you're limited by how creative you can be.
Okay, so now we've gotten into a purchase contract. Well, we know the price that we want to deal with. That's first and foremost. Now we have to deal with the purchase contract, right?
Yep.
So let's walk everybody through, and I want you to give some secret sauce, right? But you can't give all the secret sauce, guys. Kyle has this down to a science, as you can tell, and he has generated his own forms. He has literally, I think my understanding of about 6 forms, right, that
Yep.
he uses to get this done. So let's walk folks through. I'm ready to make my purchase contract, and what do we need to do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So assuming that you've gotten to terms basically with the seller, and the seller is willing to seller finance in second position, then you start getting them under contract with I think some people might do it a little bit differently, but I've developed mine from trial and error. And so some of this stuff I would never have put in there unless I had a problem that I ran into, that it was like, oh, that would be nice if I had that in the future. And so the purchase contract should be a straight purchase contract. It should say nothing on there about seller finance or anything creative. It should say, I want to buy your house for $200,000, and that there's a loan contingency on there. That I'm going to go get a DSCR loan. If I don't get the loan, then I'm not buying the property. And so that's the first thing. Then you want a document that shows basically your loan terms for the seller financing. That should be a separate document. Then you'll have escrow holdback instructions, escrow release instructions, mutual understanding of terms, and the sixth one. And and then so it's basically just all of these different documents, add up to each different part of the transaction. And so, one of them is for the seller financing. One of them is for the overall arching picture of the transaction, like saying, yep, we agree this is what's going to happen. This is what we're doing. And then you execute with a title company that's favorable, to this type of thing. Not all title companies will even close to, do this.
100%. We have talked on the phone about that, as a matter of fact.
Yep.
Yeah. So, matter of fact, somebody just asked this question, and I want to touch base, guys. Where do we get these docs, guys? How do you get these docs? You go work with Kyle. You bring your deal to Kyle, and he will JV on you with it, right?
Yep.
This has been trial and error. He's learned this, and I would never expect anybody, much like Pace, to go out and give out their documents for free, right? It's costing thousands of dollars to learn how to do this, right?
Yeah.
So bring Kyle a deal and let him work with you, and then be his partner in it, and you'll learn, right?
Yep.
So yeah, that's about where that goes. Anyway, so you had said on the docs on escrow, purchase contract, loan contingency, you've got to do loan terms, escrow holdback, escrow release. Did you forget what the other docs are? Or
Yeah, I'm actually looking right now because I'm 90% sure that there's it used to be okay. So I used to have 6 documents, and I dropped it back down to 5 after restructuring some things. So I originally used to have a purchase agreement that showed everything, the creative side of the transaction, everything. And then I'd have a purchase contract that was just the cash purchase contract. So that was 2 documents instead of 1 now, basically. So I got rid of the purchase contract that shows the creative aspect of anything, because I didn't run into problems per se, but I did, after diving a lot deeper into the legality of mortgage fraud, and making sure that we're not committing mortgage fraud by doing this. That's the whole point of to make sure that you are within the lines of the law. And 2 purchase contracts showing 2 different things was a gray area, and so that gray area was questionable, too questionable, and so now I just have the purchase contract that is cash, the escrow holdback, escrow release, mutual understanding of terms, and then a loan via proceeds of real estate sale document that I use.
Okay. Amazing, man. So guys, he's shown you or talked to you about what constitutes a deal, right? So we went over this $200,000 figurative deal, right? What he's saying is that he bases that on the amount of cash flow, on the amount of money, right? Basing it on the 1% rule, right? Am I correct with that, Kyle?
Yeah,
so you're
that's just a quick napkin
basing on
rule.
1%.
Yeah,
as a rough rule. But then he's edging it down, right? He takes 75%, so he takes 25%, off the top. I'm assuming that's war chest. So we had a $2,000 base, and then that's $1,500. He took expenses that brought him down to, let's say, around $400. Then he was saying his seller carry was going to cost him around $200, and so then he had about $200 in cash flow. And then I think, if I'm correct, right, that what he was saying is he'll leverage the property based on that amount of cash flow. Is that correct,
exactly.
Kyle?
Yep.
Yeah.
So
I got 200, now I can leverage a little higher, right?
Exactly. Yep. Maybe I could pull out 20 grand and, reduce the cash flow from 200 to 0, but walk away with 20 grand, so that's what, a lot of months of cash flow is all upfront,
So that's what constitutes the deal, right? If we're looking, because somebody was asking, well, what constitutes a deal? Well, that's what constitutes a deal, right? I have to do the numbers. I have to do the math on the deal to find out if it's a deal. So let me ask you one question, Kyle. Generally, when you're coming into these deals, let's say you find a potential deal, how do you go out and search this deal? Are you like initially talking to that seller, hey, if I bring you a big down payment, are you willing to do seller finance? Or, how are you approaching that conversation to see, hey, is this even going to be something that I should do the numbers on?
Yeah, definitely. So really it's the Morby method is another layer of kind of some of the rules that I've heard in Sub 2 and other places that, you always go for cash first. I don't really do that. I always go for creative first. The rule of thumb is go cash first and then creative. And then when most normal creative fails, that's when you move into Morby method generally. But one thing that I really like to, if a seller is willing to do seller financing, and usually the main hang up on a Morby method is getting them to go into second position, because they'll say, oh, sure, I'll seller finance you 60%, but I'm going to be in first position. There's no way in hell around that. And so there's a couple of things that we do to counter that. The first one is a wonderful argument that Carlos Ruiz actually thought of and told me, which is brilliant. He said if there's any kind of debt in any form that already exists on the property, they're already in second position. The seller is already in second position because if anything were to happen, that mortgage is getting paid first, then the homeowner. And so that's a really powerful thing to kind of turn on a seller and say, if they're like, no, I would never go into second position, and then you say, well, do you have any debt on the property right now? Well, yeah, I've got a small first position mortgage. Okay, well then you're in second position already. I'm not going to change anything except for do some paperwork and stuff. And then the second thing is we protect the seller most of the time with a deed in lieu. So if we don't make a payment for 60 days, 90 days, whatever it is, they can automatically take the property back from us without having to go through foreclosure or anything. And so we help protect the sellers in that manner as well.
Yeah. Let me answer one more question here, and then I'm going to open it up for you, Kyle, here in just a second to go answer everybody's questions. But Morgan just said the 1% rule, the 1% rule basically rules out a lot of states. Well, no, that's not necessarily true. But at the same time, the 1% rule is just a basic guideline, guys. I think you're missing the point. He's going after the cash flow. He's looking at the cash flow. Maybe the 1% rule is a kind of a quick guideline, but we all know, right, on, let's say higher priced properties, like you start getting 500, $1 million, right? The 1% rule is
it
not
fails
always.
more.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So again, we got to play a little bit of common sense there, that the 1% rule is just a baseline. I think that, that's the first thing that he's going to. But let's talk about, so now we've talked about, this is the conversation that we have with the seller. Here's how we're qualifying and trying to get there on the deal. We've talked about what we do with the deal in terms of getting there on the price and structuring the deal. And now we're talking a little bit about, escrow and how we get through that. So then when you close these properties, I'm assuming, right, at the end of the day, it's a buy and hold situation.
Mhm.
You keep them, you leverage them. Do you have any exit strategies on these properties? Like, are you just going to buy them, buy down the equity on them, and continue to leverage them over time?
So the perfect Morby method in my mind is a deal that can be seller financed for 30 years, or in the entire duration. There's no balloon on it, and I'm able to get paid at closing, and it still cash flows once everything is said and done. And one of the reasons that Morby methods are wonderful because they help potentially build your wealth now, in the kind of intermediate term and in the long term, if you don't have a balloon on the property. Because if you don't have a balloon on the property, and let's say that you've over leveraged the property to the maximum, you're breaking even at zero every month on the cash flow. Well, every year that you hold that property, the longer and longer, the better and better the deal becomes, because you're going to have, mortgage pay down, you're going to have appreciation, you're going to have, the rents aren't going to stay the same. The rents are going to go up every year. And so what starts at a zero sum game at the very beginning, by year 3, maybe you're cash flowing $100. By year 6, you're cash flowing $400, and so it compounds over time, and then you get all the benefits of owning real estate, and without a lot of the headaches that sometimes come from other types.
Yeah, 100%, man. So, guys, man, I rode this out literally till the last minute. I want to be respect because there's so much to unpack, man. And guys, he didn't even touch on the reverse Morby method. We're just talking about the normal Morby method. We could spend a whole another podcast probably on the reverse Morby method.
Yeah.
But being respectful of Kyle's time, he tried to fit in, and I tried to fit in as much as I could. But I want to open up the room to questions to everybody. I hope that you guys have tons and tons of questions. Please raise your hand, because if you don't have questions, you're not learning. So, what I would
Yeah,
tell everybody, like raise your hand and ask away if you have them.
we got the first
Anybody?
one. Yeah, Juan Padilla, come on up, brother.
Yeah, come on down. Go ahead, Juan.
Yeah, go ahead, one.
Yeah, Kyle, thanks a lot for your time, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm part of this collective group with Damon and Lance, and as well as Justin. And so we appreciate your time. We appreciate all this golden information that you are sharing with us today. So from my perspective, I've been doing a lot of wholesaling, a lot of assignments. So for me, what I'm looking for is how I can add value to you. And that would be to bring you deals, right? So what is your buy box? What does your buy box look like? And I'd love to hear it. And that way we can make sure we're targeting that so we can work together.
Yeah, definitely. So my buy box, on multiple different things, but for Morby methods, my buy box is going to be generally a property that is turnkey, that the seller is willing to go into second position, that is not in a floodplain, that is not have anything weird about where the location of the property is or anything. I don't necessarily want a mobile home in Georgia on 10-foot, 12-foot stilts. That's just kind of an odd property. I've actually me and a few of my partners actually bought a property like that, and we had buttloads of problems with it. And so it's anything that the seller is willing to go into second position, and the lower the percentage that they want as a down payment and still willing to go into second position, the better the deal becomes. So if they're willing to take 25% down and still go into second position, then that could be a killer Morby method. I'm actually working on a giant one that fits that criteria exactly right now, which is insane. You know.
So,
By,
no,
by the way, Juan, sorry, by the way, guys, when we finish, we're gonna just talk about that deal really quick, Kyle. The amazing deal that you're getting ready to do. Anyway, sorry, Juan.
no worries. So it doesn't matter to you what market it's in, and you don't care about 3-2 or anything of that.
Not really, as long as again, it's kind of all based on the math. If I have a choice, if two properties are presented in, one's in California and one's in Indiana, I'm gonna go with the Indiana one because it is more landlord friendly and everything. But that doesn't mean I won't buy in California. It just if I have a preference or choice, it is going to be a red state. And then that's the main thing. And then as long as the math makes sense on it, that you can break even after taking off 25% war chest, and break even if you're pulling cash out, cash flowing if you're not pulling cash out.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks, Juan.
Awesome, man. Morgan
Cool.
Porter, tanned
Yeah.
up,
Yep.
in the sun by the pool, and he's got a question. What's going on, Morgan?
How's it going, Morgan?
Good. So I had a question. So does this only work? What's the loan on the property? Is that just basically kill the Morby method?
Say that again. Does it work if what?
If there's a loan on the property?
No. As long as the loan is less than the down payment from the DSCR, then
Okay.
You just have to pay off that loan first, and then so let's say there's a 40% loan on the property and the seller wants 60% down. Well, that 40% is going to go pay off that loan. They're only going to get 20% in their pocket when it's said and done.
And then you said, I think you kind of answered my question, but light rehab. So basically all the rehab has to come out of your own pocket, right? To get it rent ready.
Mm-hmm. And that's where it's cool because you can use that overage, to get the place rent ready and everything. So we take that into account as well. Like, okay, if this needs 50 grand of rehab, but it'll be able to boost rents and everything, and we're going to get 75 grand at closing. Okay, makes perfect sense.
Probably a way better bargaining chip that way if you have to go that route too with the seller.
Exactly. Yeah, that you can usually use to get into a silent second for 5 years or something. Like be like, hey, this needs a bunch of work, and I'm giving you all this money down.
Yeah,
you got to work with me on the terms.
All right, well, I appreciate it. It was awesome. Loved hearing this, and thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Good to see you, Morgan, as always.
Thanks, Morgan.
Thanks, Morgan.
Thanks.
Jennifer Lindsay. Jennifer
There you go.
Lindsay.
Hi.
Come on
Hi,
down.
Jennifer.
So I'm a little like unclear about how I would talk to do you generally find properties that are off market to talk to, or do you do on market? And how would you talk to an agent?
Mhm.
And how would you talk to a seller?
Yeah, so it could be either one. It could be on market or it could be off market. If it's off market, it's maybe a little bit easier because you don't have a middle person, most of the time muddying the waters and confusing things, because this is confusing, and I want to have the conversation directly with the seller. Even if there's a real estate agent involved, I'm like, hey, please get me on the phone with your seller, so that if they have any questions or anything, we can just have a conversation directly about this and not have it be word of mouth, and then through cell phone game, lose the information, and then the seller's like, oh, what the hell, I'm not doing this. So it's the same kind of conversation that you'd have if they're willing to do seller financing. So you start with that and you say, hey, would you be willing to seller finance this property? And if there's an agent involved, you say, we'll make sure that your commissions get paid, so So they don't automatically just shut the door on you and say, oh, no, we're not doing creative. And then, once you start down that conversation path, and you just kind of feel out the situation on each property and each seller. And they might say,
Can I stop you for 1 second?
yeah,
What if they tell you there's a mortgage on the property, you can't do owner financing?
so it depends on the size of the mortgage. So like, if they have a 50% mortgage on the property and you can get a 70% DSCR loan, you could do a Morby Method on it because you could get 70%, pay off that 50% mortgage, give them 20% theoretically, and then have them seller finance the other 30%.
One more question, and ultimately you'd be paying off that mortgage anyway.
Exactly, yes.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, you're just
but then-
replacing one debt with another debt.
But then would they would be in first position at that point, right? Second.
Is
Behind,
the DSCR loan that you're getting for the
oh,
down
the
payment
DSCR loan.
is always
That's right,
first position.
That's
Yep.
right. Forgot. Okay, sorry to stop you. I'm just
No,
trying
you're good. You're
trying
good.
to figure it out.
No,
So
I was
then,
just-
okay, you talk to them about owner financing, and then what?
and then if they say, yeah, sure, I'd be willing to seller finance or whatever, then you start to broach the question of, okay, well, and it also depends. Like if they want 5% down, probably just do a straight seller finance deal. But if they're like, yeah, I want 20% down or more, then you're like, oh, okay, no problem. I could definitely give you that kind of cash. But I always tell them, I say, I don't have unlimited amounts of money. I can't be just giving people all this money. And so to give you that money, I'm going to have to go get a loan to get the money. And if I get the loan for the money, you're going to have to be in second position on the property. And we can make it work and all the numbers will work, but you have to be in second position. And then most of the time they'll say, no, I don't want to do that. And that's where you can play with the numbers some. Maybe, maybe they said they'd seller finance you at 20%. And you say, okay, what if I can give you 40% down? Would you be willing to go into second position then? And, just kind of use different negotiating tactics, for it.
So if we find like somebody that's willing to owner finance
Mhm.
and bring that to you, can you explain this to them?
Yeah, definitely. Start with, making sure that they have, I wouldn't want somebody brought to me, a seller finance deal brought to me that somebody hadn't at least had the conversation like, hey, you're going to have to be in second position. There's ways that we can secure you and everything. And they could say, oh, well, I'm not sure, or I don't, really want to, or, something like that. And then I could, jump in. But they definitely need to be made aware that the goal is for them to be in second position. And go ahead.
I think I understand. The only thing that worries me is I don't get the 40%. Like how can you figure that out? Like how much to offer them as a down payment?
It's always going to be situational. It's always going to be, you have to feel out what their needs are, what they want, what they, because, they might have a wedding that, their daughter's wedding or something that they'd be willing to seller finance their $1 million home to you, but they need $200,000 for this really nice wedding. So if you're talking to them and you're like, well, I'll give you $50,000, and you don't at least have a conversation about like, what do you need the funds for and that type of thing, then you don't know what ballpark you're playing in.
So let's say they want 200,000 down on
Mhm.
this $1 million property, and we know it's gonna cash flow it. What would be a decent cash flow for that?
If I got into the property for free, I'm fine breaking even.
So would it be 10,000 a month would be the cash flow you'd look for?
that would be the quick and dirty napkin math to be like, okay, yep, if it's 10,000, it's probably going to be a good Morby method.
Okay.
If it brings in 6,000, not saying that it won't work, but maybe you have to get more creative with the structure of it.
So, but if you gave them the 200,000 down and it's cash flowing at 10,000 a month,
Mhm.
how much would you be able to make payments? Like, how much would you get the DSCR loan for? 70% of the million? Or you want to go lower than that?
So I'll go as high. I go as high as I can go, as long as the numbers make sense on the payments. So if it was $10,000 a month,
Oh, yeah.
I take off 2,500 for the 25% war chest. I now have 7,500 to work with on a monthly basis. That 7,500 has to go to the seller if there's a payment to the seller, the DSCR loan, taxes, insurance, and any other expenses. And then what remains is your cash flow. And so, just kind of, if I could get a 70% loan and it still breaks even and the seller only wanted 200 grand down, then you just got a $500,000 check.
Okay. See, I don't get that. I'm
So-
not getting it. Am I the
you're
only
getting-
one? I mean, I
you're
feel
getting-
so stupid. I'm sorry.
No.
Sorry.
This is insanely complicated.
I don't get it.
Yeah. Hey, Kyle, maybe I can help. It maybe. So if you're getting a 70%, let's say DSCR loan,
Mhm.
and they've said they want 200,000 down, that's 20%, right?
Yep.
You're getting the spread between the 20 and the 70,
Yep, exactly.
and then their seller carrying the rest. Does that make
Yep.
sense?
Yeah.
That's
so-
where he's
Their
getting
seller
that payout.
financing 80%. You got a loan for 70%. So 80 plus 70
Yeah.
is
So
150.
Yeah. I get that.
Mhm.
Okay, wait, let me try to explain it back to you and see if I got it,
Yeah.
okay?
Mhm.
And then you guys can shut me up,
No,
But
it's fine.
okay, so you found this $1 million property, okay?
Mhm.
It cash flows at 10,000 a month. You
Mhm.
have to the owner is willing to owner finance 70% of the $1 million price tag.
Or
Right.
80% because it was 200. Yeah.
Okay, 80%. And then the other 20% you're getting from the DSCR loan. Right?
So the DSCR loan, you're trying to get as big as possible. So
Oh, okay.
the DSCR loan is the down payment.
Down payment, seller payment. No, that's gonna come out of the rent.
Mhm,
So
right.
what is the DSCR loan used for to give us the money? That's where
Right.
the 500 would come from, 500K.
Exactly.
Come
Yep.
from the DSCR loan. Okay, so you get the biggest DSCR loan you can, and
Mm-hmm.
but you pay off the 20% first, and then you're left with the rest of it, and you
Right.
make all the payments from the cash flow.
Yep.
I got it.
You got it.
Nice.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right.
Cool.
And look, guys, that's okay, right? This is a difficult concept. Do not
Mhm.
kid yourself that this is easy. This is a difficult concept, right? And again, it takes time, right? And that's why guys like Kyle offer up, hey, you've had this conversation with the seller, you can come to me, and I'll help you through the deal and we can partner together, right? But as long as you've got the premise, like Jennifer did, then you
Mhm.
should be able to work your way at least through the basics. All right, so Zoe,
Yeah.
let's get Zoe on.
The Zoe.
Let me unmute. Hey, guys.
What's
Hey,
up,
Lance,
Zoe?
Damon, and Kyle. Appreciate your time.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
just had a
How's it
quick
going?
question. Maybe I'm jumping. I know we focused the whole hour on Morby Method, and it was enlightening. I was hoping maybe you can quickly talk about wraps and the
Yeah,
reason why, or maybe it's a different Zoom, just because I've been working with Lance. We're gonna get one done. I just want to kind of understand it completely. I kind of get it, and I just want to know it because it's interesting and fascinates me as coming in as a PML, as that kind of partner.
Yeah, absolutely.
in the wraps, if that's a possibility. If not, like I said, we can do it
Yeah,
for another video if we don't got time. Yeah.
Yeah, and we could do a Zoom too, just the three of us too.
Okay, yeah, that'd be
if you
great.
want, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And yeah, if you want, I can just briefly go over, just kind of
I guess my question
what a
the-
wrap
that-
is, and
is the back end of it. Like I get what was told. We get in, holding costs, down payment, all that good stuff. We split the spread, all that good stuff. Then the equity at the end. I guess where I get confused when we bring somebody in to the property is that we're like, are we holding the property as partners, or is it being sold to the end, that eventual end buyer? Or like, I guess that's the back end of it where I'm a little confused. Like
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
So we're immediately on a wrap. You're trying to find an end buyer as quickly as possible. And so if they can bring a sizable down payment, let's say 10% or more, then when they give that 10% down at closing, they get the title to the property. They're now the owners of the property. We now move from owners into the lender, the bank's position. And so, we have underlying debt. We take and wrap another mortgage around that debt. And so now we're just acting as a middle bank, basically. So they make a monthly payment to us. We have to make a monthly payment to the underlying mortgage. We keep the difference, in every aspect. And, so we're no longer owning the property. We don't ever have to worry about repairs, lawsuits, litigation, anything. We are just purely, simply lien position holders, note holders on the property.
Okay, so basically all we have then is just the JV partnership and the spread, the monthly spread is
Right,
basically what it is. So nothing, no equity at the end of it, nothing at all. That's on the buyer.
There's equity in the sense that when you create a wrap, you have a let's say it's a 3% underlying mortgage, and let's say you sell it at 8%. Well, you have a 5% spread in interest there. The 3% interest rate loan is going to pay down, its amortization schedule is going to pay down way faster than the 8% loan will. And so as time goes by, the more and more time that goes by, a bigger and bigger spread grows between your mortgage and the mortgage that you have on the property.
Gotcha, from balances and principals and all.
And so equity is grown because that delta grows over time. And so let's say that the national average home ownership duration is 7 years. So let's say that you put the let's say it's 7 years before they sell or refinance. Then at 7 years, and let's say it was a $500,000 mortgage or house, $500,000 house. At 7 years, maybe you've created $70,000 worth of difference between those mortgages. And so whenever they sell or refinance, you're now getting another check for $70,000.
Okay. Yeah, because I was trying to not pitch or sell it, but I got a guy that I spoke to who was interested, and I feel bad. I constantly got to tell Lance no because my money's tied up.
Oh no, good.
Yeah,
Hey, get creative, right? That's
I know exactly. So I'm bringing
about.
people to the table now. So I had this guy. I just couldn't figure out that end of it. That was the one bugaboo that I just couldn't explain to him. And he's one of those analytical guys. He's a numbers guy. He's a hard money guy. So he's I'm like, okay, well, let me get the numbers. Let me figure it out. We'll get back to you. Yeah. So if we could jump on the Zoom and bring him in, and you can elaborate what you did. I mean, again, he's very interested. He just wanted to get more info. I was gonna come back and bring him that info, but yeah, it would be better if it was told by you guys, the professionals,
And a perfect way to illustrate that is, go to any amortization calculator. I like 10BI2 financial calculator, but go to any calculator and the exact same terms at, let's just say, a 300,000, a 400,000, whatever price point mortgage that you put in there, put it in at 3% and put it in at 8%. Then pick a random number of months, let's say 80 months into the amortization. Go to the 80 months, see what the balance is left, and then go to the 80 months, the same month, whatever it was, on the 8%, calculator, and then see what the difference is between the two. Whatever the difference is what your equity is at that time, what a check in the mail that you would get at that time that the house would sell.
Got it. I mean, it makes sense to me. I just hope I don't screw it up when I talk to him about it. And then, so, but yeah,
I can
definitely,
always-
if you guys are open to have a Zoom, with us three and other, I would greatly
Yeah.
appreciate it. Yeah. At
Yeah,
your
absolutely.
your time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks, Zoe. Great questions, man.
Peter
We-
Garraway.
Hey,
What's
Peter.
Hey, Peter.
Vance. Good to see y'all, Kyle. Good to see you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so going back to the Morby Method, yeah, I've been involved in a few that have went well, but I've also been involved in a couple where it's usually the lender, primary lender, DSLR lender that kind of puts a kibosh on the deal. Once if you don't have if the money's not coming from the actual buyer. So Kyle, I'm curious. If you've like typically you would set it up that the lender, transactional lender, joins the LLC of the buyer, but that that doesn't always work, or maybe the buyer doesn't want you on there, or you don't have the time to get that done. There's different ways. So I'm wondering if you have found ways to position yourself with the transactional lenders, or work with a certain group of lenders to kind of get away with this, or if I don't know if there's any like easier way there to deal with it other than, either letting money season in a bank account or not having to join an LLC together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that is one of the caveats of a Morby Method, is that every single DSCR lender that I know of, they require you to actually have whatever down payment is in their eyes, plus 6 months holding costs in actual liquid money in your bank statements that you can show. Now, you either have your own money and that's not a problem and you can do that, or if you don't have your own money, this is again where you go back to JVing and partnering with people. So I partner with a lot of people that they're loan sponsors essentially. So it's a Morby Method, and I'll say, okay, great, let's partner together. You have $500,000 liquid that you can show in your bank account, and I can structure the deal and make the numbers make sense, and they then sponsor the loan and we can get approved. You can get creative. You can either get a loan sponsor, you can create a joint LLC with somebody and do about it that way. But in any situation, you're going to have someone involved who can show the liquid funds. Generally, and it could be with the transactional lender, but and they could be a good one to partner with, but sometimes they might not want to necessarily do that because they want to just be in and out, in and out, in and out. So generally you need a loan sponsor who's generally a different person than the transactional lender.
Yeah. Okay.
I can
I'm coming at.
I can also add to that. So in the past, I've also used a real estate attorney. So I will wire funds through the attorney. So we'll basically fire the funds right through a business account and through the real estate attorney.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all about how creative you can get.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's an interesting one. Yeah, because I'm coming at from a lender's side of things too, and I've been involved in a few where I've come in the day before, and the bank actually gave us a green light. They didn't care who the money came from. they just wanted to see, the agreement between the buyer and the lender. But then I've had a handful, get turned down because they said the lender, wherever that money's coming from, they need to be the buyer of the contract. So you need to be on the LLC, advance at the closing table. or that money needs to be, seasoned in the buyers. It could be your money that you put into the, to the buyer's bank account. So that's, I guess, where, I'm trying to see if you've worked with the different lenders that don't care if the transactional lender is on the LLC or one of the buyers.
No, it's every lender that I've worked with does require actual proof of funds. They can't just be like, oh yeah, you got a screenshot of $1 million. Okay, we'll go with it. And I think there's a lot of probably SEC laws and guidelines that govern that, requirement. So that's why it's probably haven't been able to find anyone who will waive that. Now, there are different aspects of a transaction that you can fudge or maneuver. So, and one of the key points to a Morby method is having a good escrow officer and title company who understands the Morby method and the mechanisms of it, because I have found a rock star escrow officer, and she operates in like 8 or 9 states, and she can, for not every lender she can do this with, but with a lot of them, when you have to show proof of the funds and everything to get approved for the loan, but a lot of them don't actually require receipt of funds coming into title companies. And so if they don't actually require that, she is insane. She can actually forego the transactional lender altogether, and she can just move numbers around on a spreadsheet, and because she knows the whole picture of the transaction. And so we don't even have to use a transactional lender with her.
Is this the contact
Wow.
in Ohio that you
Yeah.
gave
that I
me,
gave you.
Kyle? Gosh, she is super smart. Yeah, I talked
Oh yeah,
with her.
yeah. She's so sweet too.
Yeah, the nicest lady ever. Now, unfortunately, she can't do deals in Texas, which I was a
That's
little
the one
bummed
unfortunate
about. But I
thing.
was like, well, hey, I guess I go look for deals in Ohio now, right? Like, or somewhere she can do.
Yeah, Ohio, Michigan, Kentucky, Florida, New Jersey, and a couple others that she can do.
Perfect. Yeah,
Yeah.
perfect. So is that helpful, Peter?
That's good. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks,
absolutely.
Peter.
Hey, Justin.
One more.
Come on in.
One more question, huh, Justin?
Hey, Kyle. Thanks
Yeah,
for
one more, and then we'll let you go, Kyle. So we're
No,
gonna
I'm
go
good.
one more.
given that this is pretty high level stuff, and the need to help the seller understand the whole process. Can you just give us a rundown of the pitch that you give to people to help to simplify and help them understand and really get the point across?
As far as trying to convince someone to go, seller to do a Morby method.
Yeah, exactly. Like, are you telling them about, the DSCR lenders bringing a portion of the money, and I have a transactional coordinator or a transactional lender and all these moving parts? Or how do you distill this down to them to help them understand so that they go along with it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no. So I'm brutally honest with the sellers. I tell them, I say, I ask them, I say, is it okay? I'm going to try and buy your property for no money out of my pocket. I'm going to go get a lender. I'm going to, do all these things to make sure you're safe and, everything. But my goal is to get into your property without any money. And I ask them, I say, is that okay with you? Because that is one thing that has killed a deal, is trying to hide that, and then they find out. Now, this was an unfortunate situation in the sense of the escrow officer was actually friends with the seller, and so I'm 99% sure that what he actually disclosed was kind of illegal, but he disclosed the entire financial picture of us to the seller, and the seller got pissed because they were okay going into second position and everything, but they didn't realize that we were why that was needed. And
Right.
so it blew up at the end, and I said, screw this, I'm not doing it. And so honesty is always the best policy.
Yeah.
And I always, generally, it's a conversation about, okay, what do you want? What do you need out of the sale of your house? And generally, I try to entice them with, a higher down payment. So, generally, if the conversation is leaning towards like, oh, 20%, down payment, and I'll be like, well, how about I just double it? Can I give you 40%? And,
Right.
get you a lot more cash in your pocket up front, and then, use this structure, and then just kind of go about it that way, is usually the most helpful.
Gotcha. And you explain, the processes of a transactional lender and a DSCR lender and everything, or is that a little too foreign to someone?
So I don't go really deep into the weeds with giving them the details. I just tell them, hey, I'm going to go get a loan, on the property, to, get your down payment. And then I tell them, I say, I'll probably have to borrow funds for the amount that you're seller financing for a very brief period. It'll be in and out of escrow, and then you'll be in second position once everything is closed and done.
Gotcha.
And there's sometimes that they also hang up on that. They're like, oh, there's another lender, so I'm going to be in third position.
Right.
And you just have to tell them, no. They're not actually going to be a lien holder. They're just going to be on paper, in and out.
Cool. And what is your most successful or largest deal that you've done this on?
So
oh man, he's gonna steal our thunder, man. This
know.
was the last thing we were gonna have Kyle talk about.
Well, I'm bringing the segue, Damon.
Yeah.
Great segue.
That is a great segue. So the best deal is one that I have not done yet. It is in process, and that's always probably going to be the case. Your best deal is always ahead of you. But
Right.
So I'm working on right now a 104 property portfolio out of Clarksville, Tennessee, and it is a tired landlord type of situation. He manages all of these properties himself, and he is getting older. He's in his early 70s, and basically it's the wife that is basically saying, you get rid of these now. Like, they're going to kill you. They're, get rid of them. And so he's willing to sell or finance it. Even though he's an older gentleman, he's fine holding it for a longer duration. So at least a 10-year balloon is what we're looking at on it. But it is a $16.5 million purchase price acquisition. And how he only needs about 25% down as a down payment, and he's willing to carry the rest in second position. And so what we're going to do is over leverage the properties, and we'll get a portfolio loan that will give him the 25% down, plus it'll give us about $1.5 to $2 million cash at closing, tax free. And then after everything's said and done, the portfolio will cash flow still about $10K a month. And after war chest, after everything.
Right.
And so with the end, we're having to get creative on this one, because the difference, the amount of liquidity that you need to show for a $16.5 million purchase price with only 25% down is a lot of money. That's a very large chunk of liquidity that you'd need to show. And so since it's such a low down payment that we're getting, or that he needs, as a percentage of the whole purchase price. What we're going to do is we're actually going to change the purchase price so that it will cut it in half. We're going to give him $8.25 million, but then the 25% of the 16.5 becomes a much larger percentage of the 8.25 million. And so now our liquidity requirement shrinks drastically. And then the other $8 million approximately, we're going to basically do what Pace and Jerry did. We're going to, because he's a expert on the portfolio and everything, we're going to set up an $8 million consulting agreement with him over, 30 years, with a 10-year balloon on it. And so, it's pretty
So
awesome sense
he
of
saves on the capital gains tax. For
What was
that,
that?
right? He saves on the capital gains tax because of that, right? Is that the purpose? of the fee?
he doesn't live in Puerto Rico, so that's not as helpful.
Yeah.
But yes, it does save some on that, and it also allows him to, because he's had these properties for a long time, so he has a lot of gains. So by doing a seller finance deal on it, instead of all of that due in 1 year, you lay it down over a period of time. And depending on his portfolio is probably large enough where he's not going to be able to avoid this, but if the amount of gains per year is low enough, you don't even have to claim those gains. So, he overall will save a tremendous amount of money by seller financing it to us, and he'll make interest, and he's getting a premium for his portfolio as well.
Wow, that's insane. Good luck with that, man. That's amazing.
Yeah, thank you. No, it's definitely very exciting to be working on and with such crazy numbers,
Yeah.
So,
Nuts.
so guys, on that note, let me just say, I've been doing real estate for a while. All right. And there's many times that people will come to me and say, man, like, you know so much about this and you know so much about that. And then you run into guys like Kyle, right? And Kyle teaches me things, right? And this is the beautiful part of a community, right? I know maybe a little more than the next guy. Kyle knows a little more than me, but you're all feeding off of one another. And so in lieu of saying that, right, always I end these podcasts with this. I am so appreciative from the bottom of my heart of people giving time. I've been so blessed across my life through struggles that I've had, right? Like being a homeless vet and all of that good stuff, where I've had people that were willing to pour back into me. And so you guys have no idea how invaluable the information that you're picking up right now is, right? Because this is extremely high level investing, right? So that being said, I'm always appreciative of everybody's time. Thank you, Kyle.
Yes.
I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, no, thank you
And
guys.
Thanks, man.
we would love to extend, maybe when Kyle has time coming back, and maybe we'll cover the reverse Morby method, and we will cover wraps, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of money to be made there too, guys. So
Before we
that
hop
being
off, though,
said-
how can people get a hold of you, Kyle? Can you put your Instagram or email
Yeah.
anything in the chat?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
So
okay.
the best way, I've been trying to catch up and keep up and everything, but best way is probably either shooting me a text or Instagram, or my email. I'm on that all day long, working through things. So I will definitely put.
Awesome.
Now, guys, remember, don't call Kyle at 3:00 in the morning talking to him about
I was gonna say I
be upset.
I work pretty much 24/7, but I probably won't be answering at that time in the morning.
Gotta be respectful of Kyle's time, man. But yeah, that being said, again, so appreciative of you, Kyle. We would love to have Kyle come back, right, and expand on some of these things. And yeah, guys, reach out to Kyle, man. Do deals with him. You can do nothing but learn from the people that you're surrounded by in this group. We love you all. We appreciate you all for coming. We want to have you come back. Please go like us on YouTube, on Instagram, Facebook, all of the above. Grow our viewership. That way we can bring amazing guests to you guys. I love you all, and we appreciate you. Thank you.
Thanks,
Good night,
guys.
guys.
It's not-
Kyle.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Kyle.
Talk soon.
Thanks,
Bye.
Kyle.